regionals to send?
I didn't, but I'm glad to hear that for sure.
Yeah.
I was bringing points in.
That's so exciting. That's great.
Yes.
Starting to look back on the inside of my house on Wednesday. He's doing that activity of the hall and the.
It looks like they're separated already.
Yeah, well, it looks like it, doesn't it?
My.
I've got a main cabinet and beds.
Haven't even made it a year.
They haven't even lasted a year and they're already in separate rooms.
And all on Sylvia's head.
I'm gonna get me fixed.
Yeah, we just see the top of your head, Sylvia. Your glass is up.
Okay.
There we go.
You are fuzzy today.
Pardon?
He said,
You know, you're not in focus today. They were focused on yours, weren't they? I think about 15 more minutes. I'm a little tricky. No, I'll send you to shut it off in 15 minutes. At about 25 till.
Betty?
This doesn't have anything to do with you.
Betty, did you get through your 6 hours of financial?
8 hours.
Oh, golly. That,
I couldn't hear 95% of what they said. I was the only one on Zoom. They were using a laptop. It was awful.
oh yeah, it sounds terrible.
What?
Quicker keyboard.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hey, Chip.
Hey.
I sat through Wilmington College board meetings all weekend on Zoom.
Have always been on Zoom. Notice. Check it. Maybe he looks nice.
I have found myself the secretary of the board.
Okay.
Don't know exactly how that happened.
Oh, yeah.
I heard it in a board report that I was going to be named secretary. It's like nobody even asked me at that time.
That's not good. Well, why are they fuzzy? These pictures up here are clear.
Greatness is thrust upon you.
What is that?
I said greatness is thrust upon you. You know, some people are born to greatness.
Yeah.
So
I figured everybody else on the board had said no.
every can, yeah, it's 46 cans. Then I went to Kroger.
Either that or it was a way of keeping me quiet since I have to take minutes. To be careful. You don't fight as much.
Probably, you know, they're on a Simpson. You can't.
I just don't think it's right that Megan keeps bringing food out. We see pictures of the food and not her. Earlier it was bananas, now it's toasted flakes or something. Gee, grape nuts.
Grape nut, ooh, I like grape nuts.
Can you share with
But I can't.
Hello, Dan and Chris.
Good morning. Good morning.
Where are you two today?
We are in Plainfield.
Okay. Are the fields around you harvested?
The fields around me are. They're starting to cut the last of the corn.
Later, but can you see?
Haven't seen Sue Egan last week or this. Is she out of town?
Well, she's here in person. She was here in person last week and she's here today.
Oh,
She
okay.
hasn't sat down yet. There's a whole group out in the foyer chit-chatting.
You can almost hear them.
Dan, you done in Iowa?
No, we got a half a day of soybeans and we're about 40% finished on corn.
You got some work to do yet.
Yeah, yeah.
10-year-old combines having a problem every other day, seems like. Yesterday's big problem was a flat tire on the combine.
That would slow you down.
Do you just call roadside assistance like at AAA and have them come out?
Well,
You have to jack up the combine, take the tire off, take it to the shop. Turns out it needed a new tire anyway, so it has a new tire.
Oh,
well, it was heavy. We had to get a loader to lift it into the truck.
my, I imagine.
Is the corn, is it dry? Yeah, you're having to dry.
No, it's dry. We hauled a contract to town at about 15.5%. And we're putting it at the bin at 16, which is very unusual.
Yeah, because Ruth already called and said, would you please? So maybe double check.
We will miss that. That's it.
Hi, Sue.
Everybody else that's not, there we go.
Good morning, Zoom friends.
I don't know that they heard you. You have to speak up.
Oh, thank you. That's okay.
Sue said, good morning, Zoom friends.
Good morning.
Some conversation about 3 weeks ago about days gone by and some of the things that were done, and talking about some of the songs and choir members and what have you. One of the other things that they used to do somewhat is a duet between organ and the piano. I wonder if maybe Lynn and Norma want to get together on that some Sunday.
We'd have to make sure that the organ and the piano are tuned together, or it might not turn out quite so well.
Did you hear that, Dave?
I heard that. That sounded like an excuse to me.
Yeah.
It might be painful if they weren't tuned right.
Yeah, your ears would not like it.
I bet you could do it.
Well, we will be having big music in December when Tom Roberts and his friends are here, so that'll be fun.
Morning, Steve.
And there's Deb. You.
Good morning, Deb. Good to see you.
Good morning.
I have not met that one.
Down there. And then she had her. Or she the one that she just came.
I don't know why everybody's so quiet today.
I'm cold.
You're cold, I turned the heat up.
Well, and I'm not gonna show my legs.
I turned the heat up twice.
Chip has long underwear on. Good heavens.
It's always cold in here.
Well, Purdue fans have got to be rejoicing today.
That's right.
Indiana friends, not so much. Fans, not so much. They came close.
We played a pretty good game against a strong team.
Yeah.
Go Red Sox.
Yeah.
Yes. You have a fan here.
Absolutely.
Who's your
It didn't look
fan?
so good.
Who's the fan?
Megan's a Sox fan.
Oh. I thought you meant somebody there was a Sox fan that I could relate to.
Megan,
Go Sox.
I used to live in Connecticut.
Yeah.
I don't know like that. She's sleeping in.
Sox.
She says Red Sox. She's in Boston.
I don't really have a dog in the World Series hunt this year. Suppose I'll root for the Dodgers.
Oh,
Stan said, oh no.
Well, at least Mookie would win then. We love Mookie still. You know, when they go off to other places, you can't stop loving them. They still seem like such nice people.
Well, I don't know, what was it?
Oh, yeah. No.
Football.
That does not include Tom Brady. No, that does not include Tom Brady.
Oh, no, I was thinking of the football game. I forget which one it was last night. Where the fans started throwing trash onto the field at the opposing coach. Coach there for like half a season and left and went to USC. And then he came back, and he's with Ole Miss now. And when he came on the field, they booed and hissed him. And on the fourth quarter, they were throwing water bottles and we're throwing water bottles at him. And good heavens, they had to clear the field. It was awful.
See, that doesn't happen in baseball. Even when the Yankees come to game, all we do is throw evil words. And I don't myself personally. I don't go to Yankees games because it's too spiritually unsettling for me.
I just remember going to a Cubs game at Wrigley Field. It was during the National Friends Pastors Conference. And some of us snuck out, including Tom Mullen and I, and we went to the Cubs game, and they were playing a team that had Steve Garvey on it, and the fans hated Steve Garvey, and they would boo every time he came up. And he hit a home run out into the bleachers, and the bleachers parted like the Red Sea. Nobody would catch it. I mean, they just let him hit in the bleachers. And then they kicked the ball around and kicked it back onto the field. I'd never seen anything like that before. It was such a hoot. It just cracked me up.
Well, I have to say the last time I did go to a Yankees game, people were saying things to A-Rod that just, would blend. It was just horrible. And I went with a friend of mine who was also a friend, a Quaker, and who was in her 80s. And you think to yourself, something you should be preserved from some things. But anyway, they got A-Rod so mad, he hit a home run. He was an at-bat, it was a long at-bat, and they kind of hassled him a lot. And next thing you know, it's out of the park. And I think to myself, if we just ignored him, he probably would have all gone off depressed.
Well, on that note.
And of course, the real thing is to learn to love him despite his defects,
There is that of God.
That's the trick I have to manage.
We'll begin with our prelude. Sylvia is our worship leader today, and I don't think the theme will be baseball. But I might be surprised. Well, two brief announcements. We have monthly meeting for business this morning at 10:45. All are welcome to that. And then next Sunday, we'll resume our Women of the Bible series. And we'll be doing Bathsheba. So, are there joys or concerns to share this morning?
Well, I talked to my Aunt Betty yesterday. She's in the hospital. She's the one that's famous for the Aunt Betty stories. And she's going to be released, but she's going to be going into assisted living. And if we could just hold her in the light, I'm sure she would appreciate it.
We have Lois Hoffman from our meeting here at Mooresville, who will be 102 the 1st of November.
I have a dear friend who raised her nephew, and he is going from rehab to a halfway house. He went this week. And this is the place where often he experiences difficulty maintaining. And so she has asked for prayers. And so I'm asking you if you would help us with that. His name is Anthony.
Well, as many of you may have heard on the news this morning, I always hesitate starting that way, but a family of missionaries was kidnapped in Haiti, up to between 15 and 17, including children. So if we could hold them in God's light and love, as well as the people of Haiti, what a mess that poor country's in. It's just, they show the pictures from there. I just can't imagine trying to raise a family or survive in such chaos. In joys, I will share that we had the Wilmington College Board of Trustees meeting yesterday, and despite COVID and thanks to COVID relief funds and so forth, we had actually the smallest deficit we've ever had, and are well positioned to begin applications for next year at an all-time high over the course of the college. So things under our new administration seem to be rebounding for a small, struggling Quaker institution. Things seem to be going pretty well. So I think that's a wonderful thing. Well, let us center, and Sylvia is a worship leader, so she will lead the rest of the meeting as she feels led.
Dear God, we are so thankful for this gathering of people from far and near who've come together to share our faith, to strengthen our faith, to listen to you, to love you. You've heard our concerns and your joys, and we ask that you would, mighty as you are, you have a lot of work to do. We know that you can be in all those places of need. We ask your special wisdom and guidance for the leaders of Haiti and all those people who over the years have gone there to serve you, to make things better, and it seems so discouraging at times. We ask you to especially pour your presence all over that country and give them hope for a better future and hope in solving their problems and encouragement for all those people who have suffered such horrible things as they've seen. Thank you for the wonderful harvest and this beautiful fall, and we ask that you would help us to harvest our blessings in all that we say and do. We would share your abundance wherever that it is needed. Be in our hearts and our souls today as we hear these words. In the name of Jesus, amen. We have had a good harvest, and I like being here on the farm, except for the flies in the fall that come in out of the chilly air. And Dan says that he's going to get me a therapist for how I'm dealing with the flies, because I just can't stand them. Long time ago, when I was about 8, I had to stay home from church because of some ancient disease like the measles or the chicken pox. I remember when the rest of the family came home from church and Mother and I were there with dinner ready. We were sitting at the dinner table and Mother asked Dad what the preacher spoke about. His answer was pretty brief. He said, "Oh, he talked about love." Mother said, "Well, what did he say about love?" And Dad said, "Well, he said God is for it, Jesus is for it, and he was for it." And Mother said, "Well, did he give instructions on how to go about doing it?" Dad said, "No, I think he left that part up to us, so I'm not sure I'll be any better at it tomorrow than I was yesterday." Well, I've never forgotten that conversation, and I've also felt like my mother that we perhaps should do a better job preaching and teaching how to love God and to love each other. As you know, there are 2 parts to the Great Commandment, and I'm going to read that just to remind us. One of the teachers of the law had heard them, that means hearing Jesus and the Sadducees debating, and they noticed that Jesus had given them a good answer. A teacher asked him, "Of all the commandments, which is the most important?" "The most important one," answered Jesus, "is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these." So I'd like to start with thoughts about part 1 of that commandment. I was going to do the whole thing, but I decided you all don't have that much time today. As we love God with our whole being, our heart, our soul, our mind, and strength, it seems to me we cannot know how to love others if the source and motivation of our love isn't based on our relationship with God. The first sentence in our faith and practice under the description of faith and thought says this: friends with other branches of the Christian church believe in God, the Father, the Creator, infinite in love, wisdom, and power, and supremely manifest in the person of his Son, Jesus Christ, whose life, death, and resurrection has given to mankind a unique revelation of the nature and reality of God. It also says, friends accept the assurance found in John's gospel that through Jesus we learn that God is life, and that life is the light of all mankind. Well, does that description help you define God? How did you visualize God as a child? Most of us may have thought of God as a very big man sitting on a great big throne up in the sky watching down over us. Remember the Sunday school or vacation Bible school song that goes like this? Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see. For the Father up above is looking down in love. So be careful, little eyes, what you see. I see Nancy singing along with it. And the other verses go like, be careful, little ears, what you hear. Be careful, little tongue, what you say. Be careful, little hands, what you do. Be careful, little feet, where you go. Be careful, little heart, whom you trust. Be careful, little mind, what you see, for the Father up above is looking down in love. So be careful with your eyes, ears, tongue, feet, heart, mind. Be careful. Father is watching you. Well, if you imagine God as a superhuman and believe that humans were made in his image, how's that working for you now? Is it more difficult for you to visualize God now, or is it easier? Elton Trueblood, in his book called The People Called Quakers, writes, George Fox believed in God with all his heart. God, Quakers believe, is real. He is not a figment of our imagination or a psychological projection of our hopes. God is personal, as truly a person as Christ was a person. That means that there can be a genuine I-thou relationship between the finite human individual and the living God. He is not a mere kind of being who does not and cannot know each finite person as an individual who is valuable in his own right. If God is not fully person, that is, if he cannot rightly be addressed as thou, then Christ was mistaken. For Christ so addressed the Father, and we do not believe that Christ was deluded in his deepest experience. By person, we do not mean a being who is bodily or material, but rather a being who knows, who responds, and who cares. The Father, Christ says, cares even for each single bird. How much more, therefore, does he care for every individual made in his image? Now, we know that Quakers don't have a corner on knowing how to love God, but you and I can think of a few, maybe even several friends who have given evidence that they constantly walk and talk with God, not just on Sundays, not just when the preacher is present, not just when they are grieving the loss of a dear one, but they seem to always be abiding and listening. They don't take days off from trying to be in his presence. They don't take an hour off from trying to be in his presence. Therefore, all aspects of these friends' lives seem to bear those fruits of the Spirit, as identified by Paul in Galatians. We see in these people love, joy, patience. We see peace. We see kindness and goodness and faithfulness in them. And we don't know how they can be so gentle and have so much self-control. How did they get that way? Well, perhaps they grew up with good examples in their families. Perhaps they were good students of Scripture and faithful in prayer. Perhaps their church fellowship had just the right balance of nurture and teaching as they were growing up. But for the rest of us to arrive at that place in life where people think of us as doing our part to build God's kingdom, when it becomes obvious to others that we love God with our whole being, that means with our money, our time, our talent, our skills, our careers, with the choices we make, using our space and what we do for fun, everything. And when we just know we are abiding in His saving grace all the time, well, we surely have had, or they surely have had at some point or several points, must have had a serious conversation with God in which God invited them or us to sit with Him on the bus so we could go where He goes and He could go where we go. Then perhaps they had decided to go along for the ride wherever He takes them because they love and trust Him. Well, some of us may have already put the brakes on this thinking. We may be saying, I try to be in touch with God at least most of the time, but love Him with everything I have, through every minute in every choice I make. Well, I'm not there yet, and I'm not sure I even want to be there yet. Is most of the time good enough? Is some of the time acceptable? Well, is going out in a snowstorm half dressed good enough? Is making chocolate chip cookies without the chocolate chips good enough? Is harvesting 3/4 of your cornfield good enough? Maybe we answer, well, it's better than nothing. In his book, The Testament of Devotion, in his essay titled Holy Obedience, Thomas Kelly quotes Meister Eckhart, who says, there are plenty to follow our Lord halfway, but not the other half. They might give up possessions and friends and honors, but it touches them too closely to disown themselves. Thomas Kelly also follows that quote by saying, it is just this astonishing life which is willing to follow Him the other half, sincerely to disown itself. This life, which intends complete obedience without any reservations, that I would propose to you in all seriousness, for you and for me, to commit your lives in unreserved obedience to Him. Thomas also writes, this is something wholly different from mild conventional religion, which, with respectable skirts held back with dainty fingers, anxiously tries to fish the world out of the mud hole of its own selfishness. Our churches, our meeting houses are full of such respectable and amicable people. We have plenty of Quakers to follow God the first half of the way. Many of us have become as mildly and as conventionally religious as were the church folk of 3 centuries ago, against those whose mildness and mediocrity and passionlessness that George Fox and his followers flung themselves with the passion and energy of dedicated lives. So what is God asking us to do or be for Him? Thomas Kelly describes the life and light that we as friends claim is within us is the living Christ, the God in person who loves us. He says the basic response of our soul to that light is adoration, joy, thanksgiving, and worship, surrender of our selfish motivations, and listening. I'm going to say that again. Our basic response is adoration, joy, thanksgiving and worship, surrender of our selfish motivations, and listening. When we gather for worship, when we come together as a community of faith, we are acting in response to our love for God. Yes, he calls for us to be obedient and following his instructions as delivered by Jesus. The four Gospels are full of clear instructions, and parables teach us lessons beyond simple words. Our sense of ethics, our consciences are founded on those instructions. God gave the 10 commandments to Moses as basic guidelines, but Jesus taught that the reason to follow those commandments is love. So if we start with a basic response and seek to learn more of his will and his ways, I don't think we need to be performing at 100% before we start working on the second part of the commandment, which is to love your neighbor as yourself. And in fact, I believe we learn along the ways of life and in our relationships with our family, friends, and associates a lot about how to love God as we are trying to love our neighbors. But that's for another message, another time. For now, let's consider these words of the hymn that Norma played at the beginning of our worship as our prayer. Love divine, all love's excelling, joy of heaven to earth come down. Fix in us thy humble dwelling, all thy faithful mercies crown. Jesus, thou art all compassion, pure unbounded love thou art. Visit us with thy salvation and enter every trembling heart. Breathe, oh, breathe thy loving spirit into every troubled breast. Let us all in thee inherit. Let us find the promised rest. Take away our love of sinning, Alpha and Omega be. End of faith and its beginning, set our hearts at liberty. Come, Almighty, to deliver. Let us all thy life receive. Suddenly return and never, never more thy temples leave. Thee we would always be blessing, thee, serve thee as thy hosts above. Pray and praise thee without ceasing, glory in thy perfect love. Come, Almighty, breathe thy loving spirit into us all. Let us all your life receive.
We'll now transition into unprogrammed worship. You know, some friends have other obligations and need to leave. So blessings on you. All are invited to stay, of course. And let's just continue to center in worship. Well, as we come to the close of our time together, I want to welcome my friend Claire to worship. Claire, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'd be happy to. Hi Brent. Good morning. My name is Claire Hannapel. I work with Quaker Voluntary Service, or QVS, and I have the pleasure of being good friends with Brent. And he was very kind to extend the Zoom link, which I had a little trouble finding this morning, but I did find it. And it's just been a joy to be in worship with you, though from a different state. I'm calling or joining this worship this morning from Atlanta, Georgia, where I live and work for Quaker Voluntary Service. And yeah, I'm just really grateful to be in the presence of friends and sink down and listen to Spirit this morning with you.
Are there any?
Welcome.
I'm sorry?
Welcome.
Any closing thoughts before we say goodbye?
Deb, can you update us on your health? It's good to see you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm doing much better. I had surgery a couple of weeks ago and I'm recovering nicely. And I thank you too for your prayers for my dad. He finished chemotherapy and now it's just a wait. He'll have another cystoscopy in late November. And hopefully we'll have additional blessings to be thankful for by the time we hit Thanksgiving.
Well, it's good to see everyone and worship with you, and hopefully we'll see everybody again next week. And a few of us will be here again in about 15 minutes for meeting for worship with attention to business. So all are welcome to join that as you feel led.
Same link?
It was really good to see you. I'm sorry,
Same link?
No, it's a different link. It should have been in the email this week that you received.
It is. I just am too lazy to go look at it. Now I will. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, two separate links.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Take care, all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Sounds very nice of Claire to join us. Yeah.